Good morning, everyone. My name is Ernest Makua. I would like to welcome everyone who is already here for our monthly webinar for the RMITED. So today we have in our midst one of the guest speakers who's going to give us presentation that's going to be based on summer supplementary feeding on cattle. So just to give you a little bit of a hint about who is the speaker for today, his name is Espee Olivier. He's from Molatek Feeds. So he is a KZN sales manager and marketing specialist. So he's going to share with us more information about the supplementary feeding for cattle in winter as to how you as farmers should go about in terms of feeding your cattle during summer period. So what are the things that you need to pay attention to in terms of feeding? And he's going to give us the presentation just to give you a little bit of house rules about how you're going to go about in terms of the presentation process or our meeting process. So he's going to give us a presentation. And thereafter his presentation, we're going to have a discussion session. During the discussion sessions, so you're going to have an opportunity to ask him questions of your interest, and he's going to give you answers where he can, and he's going to give clarities as well. So I'm going to ask you to just switch off your mics, switch off your cameras. You are only allowed to switch on your mic just after his presentation. If you have a question to ask him, or you have a recommendation that you want to give to your fellow farmers or your fellow attendees, or you have a comment regarding the whole presentation, that's only when you're going to have to switch on your mic. So you are expected to switch off your mics, to switch off your cameras as well. So I'm going to, before I hand over to our guest speaker today, I'm also going to highlight to you that this is within, is in line with our vision as the RMITED, the Red Meat Institute for Transformation and Enterprises Development, which is to foster stakeholder engagement in the red meat industry. That is towards the inclusive growth through the transfer of knowledge. So we ask our guest speaker to give us a content that is related to summer supplementary feeding, so that you as farmers, you can be able to better or to improve your supplementary or your farm management in terms of how you need to supplement your cattle. So I'm going to hand over to Mr. Espee Olivier to give us a presentation. And then after the presentation, I'm going to take questions. And if you are shy to raise questions orally, you can just drop your questions in the inbox. We're just going to read them through so that Espee Olivier can be able to answer them. Over to you, Mr. Espee Olivier.
Ernest, thank you very much. Thank you for the privilege and the opportunity to speak with you and your audience and the audience today. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for your time and dialing in and registering for this talk. I just want to know, Ernest, you can see my screen?
Yes, Espee, I can see your screen very well.
All right, so firstly, I want to start by telling you guys who Molatek is. Molatek is an animal feed business that's been running since the early 1980s, part of the old TSB Sugar, now known as RCL Foods Sugar and Milling. We farm sugarcane in the Nkomazi area, which is the Onderberg region in the Mpumalanga district of Komatipoort and Malalaan, Hectorspruit, as well as Pongola, where we plant in excess of 50,000 plus hectares of sugarcane. That's in an annual cycle under irrigation. Other than the sugarcane we tend to know along the coast, which is dryland variety, that distinguishes our operation. And combined, we deliver 5.2 million tons of sugarcane to the market annually. And our much-loved brand is known as Salati Sugar. The molasses and the bagasse derived from the sugar manufacturing process is the raw materials that we use to absorb and to mix our animal feeds with, that the market comes to know and love. Molatek animal feeds have a national and international sales structure or cross-border sales structure servicing South Africa, Namibia, Lesotho, Swaziland, and Botswana. We are a team of plus minus 40 technical advisors that's situated across the whole country, as well as people looking after the neighboring countries. And we have a technical team that supports us, qualified registered animal nutritionists and animal scientists, Dr. Flok Ferreira and Johan Maton, and they do all kinds of market research and correlation, or in collaboration with the University of Pretoria and or numerous universities. I don't want to mention only one. All right, if we can start off, I want to just say that there is a big difference between supplementation and feeding. Supplementation is, or feeding for that matter, is when we replace some of the natural resource by giving animals roughage and a high intake feed, which replaces grazing. So when we feed animals, it's usually not viable or sustainable in the long term, but it's necessary during periods of drought or veld fires. It has a place, but supplementing is being reliant on the natural resource in terms of grazing, veld, and then we only supplement with a lick what the animals need actually is in terms of minerals, salt, proteins, and trace elements. So dependent on the season or the animal status, the production status of the animal, we will discuss advantages and supplements today going further. Phosphate is the restrictive mineral when it comes to summer supplementation in cattle. South Africa is known to have areas that's very poor in phosphate. If you look at the Vryburg and the northwestern region, and then also along the coastline of southern Africa, the east as well as the south coast, and phosphate plays a big role because summer grazing usually lacks phosphate, but it supplies in the main growth season enough protein and energy. Phosphate is supplemented throughout the year, but more so during the summer and during the lactation period of the animals, of the cows. Phosphate is a restrictive mineral for production in this time because of lactation and because, remember, we said we supplement the veld. So in summer, veld has energy and protein, so we need to supplement phosphate. The calcium and salt and minerals go with phosphate. We'll discuss that a bit later. The animals need phosphate increase during late pregnancy and lactation because of a higher demand, because they're lactating. And then the P, or the short for the symbol for phosphate, supplement should always adhere to the cattle's daily trace mineral requirements to ensure optimal production and reproduction. 80% of the body's phosphorus is found in the skeleton. And it presents in all body cells. So phosphate, you can see how critically important phosphate is. Phosphate plays an important role also in the metabolic system and processes. Maintenance of strong, healthy bones, development of skeletal frame and skeletal growth, energy and protein metabolism, fertility and milk production, and enzyme systems. So it's actually utilized and it binds and works together with energy and the other minerals to help in all these functions. The deficiency symptoms, you will see immediately. If it's an acute deficiency, you'll see pica, where animals tend to chew or pick up foreign objects, mostly bones, or that's lying around in the veld, or plastic bags, tins, chewing on objects lying around. That's usually an acute phosphate deficiency. Decreased fertility, less calves, fewer calves, less milk, lower growth tempo, loss of appetite, stiff joints, the arthrosis, stiff joints. We've seen numerous times in the Vryburg and surrounding areas where the phosphate requirement is much higher than the rest of the country. Then feedstuffs and inorganic phosphate sources contains various amounts of phosphates that is available for biochemical functions. The bioavailability of phosphorus can differ from 50 to 95%, as you can see, depending on the type of forage and its maturity. So summer grazing, to give you an idea, well-fertilized, irrigated green pasture, which is supplemented with fertilizer, has a phosphorus content of about 0.3%. If you go to natural grazing, in KZN, for instance, we can take, or we say that the natural veld has a phosphate intake, or phosphate percentage value of 0.8 to 0.1%. If you go to the areas where there's an acute shortage, like the Vryburg area, you are talking about 0.04%, which is tremendous. So that's usually double the intake of lick supplements in terms of minerals than what we are seeing in KZN, for instance, or in the summer, the majority of the summer rainfall area. Feedstuffs of plants and animal origin do not contain enough digestible phosphate. So even if the animal takes in a decent amount of the pasture and the phosphate, that phosphate is not bioavailable enough for them to adhere to the high production demands that we set on our cow-calf enterprise to be profitable. So we'll have to substitute or supplement. If we look at some important traits in beef production that's influenced by nutrition, fertility and reproduction is one, and growth tempo or production of meat or the weaner is the other. Stocking rate in terms of not also just the supplement, but your natural resource, to make sure that you're not overgrazed and the animals build up mineral shortages due to a shortage of roughage intake, which can lead to a higher intakes and trouble again on the supplement side and on production side. And then there's an old rule of thumb that we say that the fertility or then calving tempo is 10 times more important than growth tempo. So a calf is better than no calf. Productivity of beef herds gets influenced by poor nutritional status of the herd, prolonged postpartum on estrus, that is just the period that the female after calving takes to conceive again to the bull. So after calving, a lack of nutrition will make that animal take a very long time to cycle again to conceive to the bull, as to oppose an healthy animal that we would like to conceive quickly after calving. Longer intercalving periods, the ICP or intercalving period is typically the time from when between the two calves, which we would like to have sub 400 days. Some of the LNR and Stambuk and herds have ICPs of less than 370 days, which is quite remarkable. So that's fertility and supplements go hand in hand. Mortality due to suppressed immune function, the lack of supplementation and these critical minerals can lead to animal mortality due to a lowered immunity. So they're much more susceptible for disease. Vaccines is not that effective because of the mineral status of the animals. So that plays a big role. And then, of course, poor veld management, which would be overgrazing, too many animals on a certain pasture for too long periods of time, and even too little animals on too big a pasture, because then they graze selectively and they eat all the best grass. And over time, your poor veld and your annual species gets grown more vigorously, and the better grasses gets depleted because the veld doesn't rest. So that will influence you on the long term. The main product, if we can look at the cow-calf enterprise, if we measure our success with supplements in mind, we will look at the kg wean per cow per year. There's various measures of measuring your success of a healthy supplemented herd. Kg wean per cow per year, kg of beef produced per hectare per year, which is probably the more broader used term, or to compare herds with each other, or to compare a cattle enterprise versus other cash crops or other livestock farming enterprises. So it's important to know what you produce. And the cow-calf weight ratio, wean ratio, which will be if the calf weighs 200 kilograms and the cow 400, then that's 50% of her mass that she weaned. So it's good to know what your desired or decent weaning ratio is, because you can have a very big cow weighing in excess of 600 kilograms, weaning you a sub 200 kilogram calf. And if you work out the weaning ratio percentage, that cow is very uneconomical to keep in terms of feed conversion and production. Kilogram beef produced, or then if we measure our output, then it gets influenced by the conception rates and age of the first calving. If you keep your replacement heifers, by what age are they calving again? That is very important for lifelong production, so that you don't fall behind in terms of beef produced. The quantity of calves born, the growth and survival rate till wean, in other words, weaning percentage, is more accurate in terms of output, because then you withstood the challenges of nature and the jackal catching the calves and calves being stolen and all that. So if you really want to measure your success, look at your weaning ratio. Stocking rate, in terms of how many animals we keep on a specific piece of land, and then supplementation program and quality of natural resources. So the better you manage your veld and you farm your natural resource, the less supplements you will have to use, which is actually, I always used to say, we farm with microorganisms, which is the rumen microorganisms. But actually we farm with grass, because the grass is the energy, and without the grass, we can't graze cattle. And with poor grass, we can graze less cattle and produce poor offspring. So make sure that you give the right management practices, or follow the correct management practices if it comes to managing the natural resource, with resting your grazing, looking after your veld, and give your young growing animals the better quality of that veld, because they're still growing. If we look at the NRC, which is the most accurate figures, and they are still very relevant in today's production, we would see we have different age and production statuses on the left here. We have young heifers, we have pregnant heifers during their last 3 months of pregnancy, lactating first calver in the first 3 to 4 months of pregnancy, so she's pregnant for a first time, a mature cow that's lactating, and bulls, medium-framed bulls. Now you'll see their weight in kilograms differ here. So when we come to dry matter intake, that is after you've taken out the moisture, that is the amount of grass that one of those animals will be required to take in a day. And what we see, if I can stand still on dry matter intake for a while, is that circumstances have driven a lot of farmers to kraal their animals, or herdsmen to herd animals out to veld at day and back in the afternoon. And we as humans are interfering very much with the grazing patterns of animals and the management of those animals, and we are restricting them on taking in their full amount of grass. I'm not talking about droughts and veld fires and the loss of bales, but as soon as you restrict an animal on this daily intake, where the majority of their minerals come from, then we'll have to supplement even more and feed even more, need to buy in bales and complete feeds, and that is not viable. So rather farm with less animals and make sure that your stocking rate or your grass, your demand for dry matter is satisfied per animal, then having a lot of animals, but they are so malnutritioned and poorly looked after that they get sick often and they produce not really a calf that can replace the input costs. So there's a lot to be said about dry matter intake and felt management, and that's a whole different subject. But the metabolizable energy in kilograms is the energy value in total that one of those various animals will need. The total digestible nutrients, which is the TDN, is also what those animals need. And we're going to focus on the phosphate, which is the main restrictive mineral for summer. The CP is crude protein. So you'll just see how the protein requirement differs. Look at that 916 grams of crude protein. I mean, that is a tremendous amount for a first calver in terms of what she needs in protein. So if your summer grazing has a 6% protein value or a 7% protein value, you can times that by 8.6 and you'll get to a protein value. And then we subtract that from the total demand, and that is what we would want to supplement. So we only, remember we said we only supplement what the animals need and what they fall short on to get to our production goals, and the same with phosphate. So this is the total phosphate requirement in grams per day for one of those animals. So if we take 13 grams per day, and that young weaner heifer takes in 5.5 or 5.7 dry matter with a 0.07% phosphate intake, you'll see that we're going to need to supplement 6 grams because we're going to fall short on a total requirement. So that is very important to know, that your different animals needs different levels of mineral supplements. That's why we farm in the same animals together. I know a lot of herdsmen or farmers and commercial farmers tend to make one herd of animals with young ones, middle-aged ones, first calvers, heifers, bulls, cows, lactating animals, everything together. Doing that, you will never be able to supplement according to demand. And then what happens is the animals that doesn't need a specific supplement will eat your profit, because they will take more than what they require, and then the younger animals will be short of those critical minerals and proteins to grow out. So that is another important aspect in terms of supplementation, is to make sure that your animals, but I'll mention something a bit later about that, is in homogenic groups, same age and weight, more or less, in the specific groups. So we'll say for supplementing weaners 6 grams of phosphate, that will equate to 120 grams of a P6 commercial phosphate lick, like a Molatek Phos Block or a Phos Lick or a product as such. And then pregnant heifers 9 grams and lactating cows 12 to 14 grams. So in Vryburg area and in acute phosphate shortage areas, that phosphate demand can easily go up to 22 grams, more than double what we are used to. So why does first calvers need more attention? First calving heifers, your future of your herd. because they're still growing, and they have a higher nutritional demand, and they're lactating, so they give out plenty of minerals to the calf to supply milk, and they must still grow in frame and put on weight. Weaning weight of that first calf, the weaning weight of her calf makes out a bigger percentage of her body mass. Remember, we talked about the cow-calf ratio for productivity, or to measure your production. So with a heifer, the calf makes out a bigger percentage of her body, so she needs better attention. Ernest, you still fine there on the other side?
Yes, I'm still quite very fine. Everything is still fine on my side.
Is the slides transitioning easily, well, or timeously?
Yes, everything is flowing very well.
All right.
Thank you.
Then we'll go on. BCS is a term short for body condition scoring. Now, body condition scoring is a very important trait to make sure that you get a hold of it or understand it. Is very important for your cattle farming enterprise. Body condition scoring gets used a lot now in the summertime, in the summer rainfall regions where it is mating season, and it is the season to grow out animals, and it's the season to slaughter some animals that hasn't got calves, or that's after they've grown on the summer veld. So it works on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is really, really bone skinny and 5 is overly fat. So the optimum production in terms of conception percentage on the left axle here, on the vertical axle, you'll see that 91 to 94% will equate to 3.2, 3.1 to 3.6. I'll show you now a slide where we'll have examples of body condition scoring. So you don't want an animal, as soon as they become over fat, they're from 3.5 to 4.5. They accumulate a lot of fat in the udder and the brisket, and the hormones gets imbalanced and they don't cycle. So too fat is also not where we want to be. To optimize productivity, we say we must maximize our conception rate. So healthy animals, the amount of cows conceived with the bull in a certain period of time, that is the rate of conception. We must maximize calf growth. Animal health, restrict mortality and follow a good biosecurity program, as well as a animal health program. Follow a breeding season with calving dates. Rather have 2 breeding seasons, winter and summer, but try and do the summer one, which is when the natural resource in the summer rainfall areas at its best. And then we would like cows to calve and to conceive, because that's when the grass, the value of the natural resource is at its best, and that's where the nutritional demand of the animals is the highest. So if bulls, in terms of breeding season, which is another subject totally on its own, but if you don't follow a breeding season, you'll never be able to test your bulls for disease and state notifiable disease and sexually transmitted diseases like trich and all kinds of ugly diseases. So there's a time of rest for the bulls that's needed after the mating season and before the mating season to do all that. So a breeding season is highly recommendable. That will also help you to supplement your animals all at once with the same supplement, and not have animals with different nutritional requirements in one herd, which is just going to cost you too much money to look after. Reconception, we talked about that postpartum unestrus, the animals with which malnutrition or poor summer nutrition and poor nutrition, they take very long to conceive after they calved. We would like them to reconceive within 90 days, preferably 2.5 months after they've calved is the optimum time to take to the bull again. And then, as we said numerous times, manage a group, not individuals. It's impossible to manage individual animals in a herd. You'll work like nothing before, through around the clock, through the night. It's just not viable, and a waste of energy. And then, of course, strategic supplementation, which we can say a lot about. Horses for courses, as they say. So to come back to body condition scoring, this I should have actually included this just below that graph to give you a good idea, but a 1 score is a very skinny cow with hip bones, pin bones, ribs sticking out, and that is a very, very poor cow. 1.5, not much better. A 2 condition score, not that great also. 2.5 is probably, if your animal has to lose weight in the winter, you must try and restrict them to 2.5, from 3.5 to 2.5. To vary between these condition scores is more acceptable and healthy, and she'll quickly conceive if she picks up weight again after the winter or after a poor period of grazing. So obviously on that graph, we saw that a 3 to a 3.5 is where your best conception rates and animal production lies. And then a 4 starting to get fat. Typically that cow that didn't calve, that goes through the summer, she's fat enough to slaughter from the veld. 4.5, 5, overly fat. That cow probably didn't have a calf in 3 years, but that is the body condition scoring scale from 1 to 5. And here, just another graph explaining then that as your body condition scoring increase to a favorable 3.5, which is the optimum, your best conception rates are being achieved. So if we talk about solutions, we would say that sufficient mineral supplementation in summer is crucial. There are good quality commercial salt mineral supplements on the market. There are various suppliers in the market. Molatek is one such supplier that adheres to international ISO accredited safety practices and quality control processes. We're also available throughout the country. It's very important to supplement with minerals. And when your animals hasn't been subjected to a salt phosphate mineral supplement, Please start slowly, or don't give a protein supplement if your cows have been kept away from phosphate supplements for more than 3 weeks, because they build up subclinical shortages and then they overindulge, and then you can get urea poisoning, you can get salt poisoning. There's numerous feed related or supplement related disease that can be subject to malmanagement of your supplements. So make sure that you follow the instructions of such supplement, and that you go about it through adaptation and gradually making your cattle used to them. Creep feed, a very good practice. If you want to rest the animals, you take away the calves at about 5 or 6 months. You can actually wean them early and give them supplement or a feed to save the heifers or the cows, or you can just start adding creep feed from 3 months, 2 to 3 months of age, to up your production. Production supplementation, like for instance, Molatek background or elite block, is typically the highest return on investment that you can get in the summer. For every 5 rand that you spend, the animal will grow 20 rand of beef in value. Just around the practicality around that, if you have 20 or 30 or 40 animals to the bull, or you're planning to put them to the bull in December, start giving them such a summer supplement, summer production supplement, or like background, for instance. There's also others you can use, but that will make them cycle faster and it will shorten your breeding season. So if you start now and you do that for the period where the bull is in, you would see that your calves will wean heavier because they will eat also from that palatable, tasty supplement. And the additional weight on your calves will pay for this production supplement. And then your higher conception rate will be net profit in a cow-calf enterprise. In a weaner enterprise, if the people doesn't want your weaners and they're weighing 180 or 200, but you would like to get to 220 in a short period of time, kilograms, then you give them 1 kilogram a day on good quality green felt, and they will grow 1 kilogram a day, depending that they're healthy and inoculated and well looked after, and there's ample grazing. So that is what we mean by a strategic supplement, to obtain a goal in a certain time, to sell your animal to get maximum value. So instead of selling it, you can sell it at the same rand per kilogram, but if it's 30 kilograms heavier, you're going to make much more money. So that is the strategic interventions or supplements we are referring to. Felt and grazing management, and then coordinate production status or the nutritional demand of your herd with the quality and quantity of available pasture. So typically, don't make your cows calve in the winter, and this is what happens. The bull is with the cows the whole year, so they calve all throughout the year. So you have calves that needs attention and cows that needs attention, but then there's fat ones between them that weaned calves that doesn't need supplement. So then you're between a rock and a hard place, because to supplement production supplements to animals that's not in production is a waste of money. So make sure that you synchronize your natural felt environments nutritional status, which is November, December, January, February, with your calving season. But preferably try and finish up calving by beginning December. And then herd health and biosecurity. We can't stress this too much. or enough, excuse me, with BVD, brucella, TB, trich. There's ample animal diseases that's running rife in communities, commercial and subsistence alike, and make sure that you follow biosecurity protocols together with this supplementation program to ensure optimum health of your cow herd. And then my last slide, strategic lick supplementation can amount to as much as 35% in reconception. Remember, we said reconception is that 60 to 90 days your cow needs to conceive again after she's calved. So you can increase roughly by 35% in reconception rates, depending where you started out on, or it can amount to 20 to 50 kgs in weaning weight. So that's a return on investment of 3.5 to 1. So very lucrative, very well worth it, and that is in a nutshell what I would wanted to say to you guys today. And before I hand over to Ernest for the discussion or the question and answers, you are welcome to email us or call me, or visit our website or visit us on social media. We do have field officers that can visit you guys on farm or get involved in your processes to help you guys. We are not there only. We're not there to sell feed. Yes, that's part of our work. But if we don't give you guys the tools and the answers or the solve your problems, then we're not going to be in business. So that's why farming and animal production is our passion, and that's why we're there to help you guys. So thanks for your time listening and the opportunity, Ernest, once again, and thanks to everyone that's dialed in. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much indeed, Espee, for the very informative presentation you have made. Now is a discussion session. We're going to allow you attendees to raise your hand if you have a question, or you can either drop it in the box so that I can read it for Espee to give answers. But also just to mention that the presentation is recorded. So we're going to upload it in our YouTube channel, that is Red Meat Koluma, so that for those who didn't manage to attend, they can be able to listen to it online on YouTube. So please raise up your hand if you have a question so that we can allow Espee to answer it. I see Poloko debates. Poloko debates, so you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you, Ernest and Espee. Thanks for a good presentation. Mine is a short question. In part due to poor carrying capacity of the field, I still have to supplement, use the remains from the winter, poor quality grass that I still have to supplement. But the question here is, it safe to assume that that brown straw, which is really mainly your for energy, poor quality, is it safe to say there's still some trace of phosphate in there, but it also lacking protein? Do I need to keep a bit of protein supplement, or I should just assume that summer protein, the grass in summer will have adequate protein? I don't need to worry about supplementing that with protein. Hopefully you got that, Ernest. Thank you.
Thank you. Espee?
Thank you, Poloko, for your question. It's depending on your on the nutritional demand of your herd, or on the production stage that they're in. If it's dry animals that don't have calves, or they're not lactating, or it's, for instance, a group of oxen that you're growing out, or weaners, then there'll be obviously also a shortage, but to a lesser demand. Because to answer your question, if I understand correctly, that yes, the drier felt have phosphate in it. It also has energy in it, but there the requirement will still be protein to help the animal digest the poor quality fiber, together with a phosphate if they have calved, for instance, already. If they've calved and there's no green grass and they're lactating, then you'll need to supplement still what you have been given in the winter, to help them digest that poor quality felt, together with a phosphate, to help them produce that milk and energy, of course. Because this time of the year, if the felt is in between, I don't know specifically how your pasture or your resource looks like, but it's not green yet, but it's short as well. So there's not that volume, which also helps the animal to get energy in. So that's typically the period where you would have to give a production supplement, which supplements the energy, protein, and minerals. And that's the answer in short.
Thank you very much, Espee. I see Puloko is still have another question. Your hand was up.
No, sorry, I wanted to appreciate. Thanks, I'm okay. I pressed the wrong button. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question? Don't be shy to raise your hand. The platform is yours for you to get answers. I see Tsofazo. The platform is yours.
Hi there. Thank you for taking my hand. I wanted to ask, because Espee mentioned that it's, worst case scenario is to calve in the winter, which is actually, what our case is now at the moment. We have cattle that will be calving in May next year. And so I wanted to, just sort of get some direction as to how can we best supplement the cattle then. I think if they were calving, maybe say in February or March, one could start then adding the creep feed, and sort of helping the mothers in that way by helping their calves develop. But now that they're calving basically smack bang in winter, I think the best way is to help the mothers. So I'm trying to understand, how does one do that? How can we optimize or help the mothers the best that we can, given that the grass in winter isn't gonna be the best? I hope that makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. If I might ask, in what region are you situated?
We're in Limpopo, Polokwane.
Okay. And will your animals be have access to stalks or crop residues or cover crops or any cash crop other than natural grazing, or will you be calving in that period and then only will be reliable on winter felt?
I'm wanting to start maybe supplementing with some sprouts, maize sprouts or barley, but I'm not sure if that's going to be enough with the natural grazing at that time of the year. But I would like to do that for them as well.
Okay. It will be a challenge. If you don't have access to maize stalks or stover or green feed or irrigated pasture, in the winter, then it's a big nutritional challenge. And I would recommend you talking to our representative in the area. Maybe he can pay you a visit or can help you with your specific requirement. But basically, if you must just make sure that for the amount of animals that's going to calve, if it's a medium frame beef breed, then they're going to need in excess of 9 to 10 kilograms of dry matter per day. So if you just cut that with a sickle and put it in a bag, 10 kgs of dry grass is a lot. And so either you will need to supplement with bales, with hay bales, and a production supplement, which contains protein, energy, and minerals. Or you'll need to, as you said, the sprouts, that's a different subject, but it contains 80 to 90% moisture. So to feed 1 kilogram of wet sprouts, you're only going to get 150 or 200 grams of fiber in. So I think you must just do your feed flow or calculations, or talk to someone that's close to you that understands your scenario. But you'll have to supplement with additional licks, definitely. And depending on how long those the felt conditions is going to stay poor and how well rested your felt is, that will depend on what you'll have to supplement. I don't want to stretch out the webinar or give an extended answer, but one way of getting those animals back into your summer calving season is by taking away that calves at 4 months and then giving them a calf meal. Giving them a calf meal totally separate. In other words, if you take them away July, August, you give them a 16 or 18% protein, well-formulated calf grower meal, and then you give the cows a supplement to bounce back or to recover after that wean shock, and then you give them a good supplement on the veld, and you put them to the bull again 1 December that same year, and then for until end of February, and then you bring them gradually back. The next year you do it again with their calves, take them away early, supplementing the cows, giving them bull in the summer, but don't leave the bull with them throughout the year. Then they're just going to calve all over the place. So, but that you can discuss with your animal nutritionist or your technical advisor. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Espee.
Thank you very much. Satisfied as you are, then we are waiting for the second or the third question. Anyone who has a question can just raise up your hand so that Espee can be able to assist you. While waiting for another question, I'm just gonna ask this question that I got from one of the farmers who couldn't attend Espee, who was basically asking if the availability of water or the water quality, does it in any way affect the efficiency of supplementary feeding during summer period?
Yes, Ernest, that's a very good question, and I could have mentioned it in the slides where we talked about the natural resource, that water and grass is the main source that needs to be well looked after first, and to be make sure that that's in place, because water quality will influence the uptake of minerals. If the water is soft or hard depending on the on. We have, for instance, to give you an example, there's water coming from old mine shafts out of fountains and in mountainous areas, and that water affects the absorption of certain minerals. So I know also some water in the northwest and more towards Botswana is very salty, and that affects the animals severely. Yeah. So, but if there's no, can I say, acute problem or no problem with the animals taking in water, then one can do a analysis. But if the region's water isn't known to have a problem, or it's a natural source, then I can't foresee any trouble. But it does have an effect. And an animal, another example is animals drinking from a dirty dam or a dirty source. If the water is contaminated with mud and dung and urea, urine, not urea, excuse me, where the animals defecate alongside the water source, and it's a small pond and it's murky and they need to drink that water, then that can influence growth in excess of 250 to 300 grams a day. If you're talking about young bulls or animals that needs to grow. So dirty water is a problem. Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Espee. I see some of the people, they already asked questions in box. I'm just going to read number one question from Cassius. He asked, does the folic supplement need to be mixed or fed as is, e.g. mixed with crushed maize or Molatek, molasses, etc.? Espee?
I didn't get that, the first name. What supplement?
He says Foslic supplement.
Oh, Foslic.
Yes.
Foslic is a ready mixed phosphate salt mineral supplement. It contains 5% of P phosphate and 10% of crude protein. So it's a more palatable phosphate in a meal form that's already mixed for younger animals or small stock as well, to give them minerals. Whereas the block is a more concentrated rain-resistant product. So no, Foslic doesn't need to be mixed with anything.
Okay, thank you. Number two is from Puloko. He asked, what are the other typical supplementary minerals that are recommended during summer? I guess it's during summer season.
What supplements are recommended?
What other supplementary minerals are recommended? Yes.
So we mentioned that with the phosphate goes usually, or not usually, in the majority of cases, we don't supplement individual minerals because it's very expensive and hard to come by, and it's just not practical. So the phosphate and calcium and salt usually go together, and with them they are formulated as such to bring all the essential minerals with them. So if you talk about your minerals like selenium and copper and zinc, and the main ones, phosphorus, calcium, salt, and then all those micro elements. So they are all in there, and they go together with phosphate. If you give a typically or a commercial registered feed companies summer mineral supplement, and you feed it according to the recommendation, you will automatically get in all 7 of the other essential elements or minerals that goes together with a phosphate. So that is a broad spectrum mineral treatment. Yeah.
Thank you. The other question is from Silo Mabue. Dr. Silo Mabue is asking, he says, thank you for the great presentation. And he asked, how do you make your leaf blocks to be water resistant? And does this apply to urea containing winter block as well? Espee?
Yes, thank you for the question. To answer him, the winter block, the blocks in general, was a very interesting process that was initiated out of the market demand. We wanted to be unique. So our block is actually a combination block, if I can say that. It's a combination between a press process and a chemically hardened process. So there's a curing process after production that makes the block a bit harder, and that gives it the consistency or the water resistant factor of not taking in water and not to go bad if it gets 20 or 30 millimeters of rain on it. Then yes, the winter block or the urea containing blocks is safe to give. Usually the animals doesn't take that product as much as the meal form because of them needing to stand there and take off bit by bit. And then actually, because traditionally in the summer rainfall region, or when we give winter supplements, there's not rain involved. So usually we don't have problems with the urea in the blocks with water. Just make sure that when you put it in a trough and it rains, it mustn't sit in the water and dissolve in it. Make sure that your lick troughs drains the water adequately. Or if you only put the block on a rock plate or on a rocky region or on the grass as such, and it got rain, when it gets sun and you get there, just flip it around so that the bottom wet part or damp part can get sun as well, or move them to a different area, or make sure that your lick troughs drain. If there's an emergency in the winter and it's a big storm and there's urea containing feed and there's a risk of it being dissolved totally in the water or sit in a dam of water, then you'll have to throw out the water or to take precautionary measures. But they are formulated very safely, and even on double the intake, we recommend animals still will be safe. It's just if you have salt hunger animals or animals that's not used to supplementation, rather start with a salt phosphate to satisfy that salt hunger and then move over to the protein containing products.
Thank you very much, Espee. I don't see any other question in the comment section. I see Poluko, your hand is up. Oh, you are clapping hands. Thank you very much. Let me see if there's any other question. I don't see any other question. I see someone's hand is up. Paki?
Yeah, that's me,
Yeah,
Ernest. I just wanted to ask, in the technical reps, are they able maybe to evaluate the camps in terms of the grass types and develop like a nutritional plan for the farm, through the seasons, or not?
Yes, that is doable. Usually, the people in the field, they are familiar with the grazing systems and the species that grows in specific regions, and and in terms of the breeding season of the area and the rainfall of the area, the veld and the natural rainfall will be the deciding factor on what program to follow. But yes, definitely we can do that.
Okay, thanks, Espee. I think I definitely need such a service.
100%. You're welcome to contact me afterwards. I can put you in contact with the right people. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Punky, for your question. I don't see any other hand up. I don't see any other comment in the box. That will suggest that everyone who is here is satisfied with the answers that were given, is also satisfied with the presentation content. And so I'll just ask the one last question to Espee. Also, I get most of the time from the farmers on the ground. They would go and ask why it's most of the time recommended that the phosphate supplement must be done in summer and not in winter. Can you also recommend for a farmer to also continue doing supplementary feeding or supplements for phosphate in winter?
Yes, thank you, Ernest. That's also a good question. And actually, phosphate needs to be supplemented throughout the year. The demand for it is just lower in winter time, depending on the production system that the farmer follows. Remember, the veld do contain phosphate, but the restrictive mineral in summer is usually, because we accept that the majority of the summer rainfall regions cows calve in the rainy season or in the summer, then phosphate is the restrictive mineral. But if you're farming in northwest, certain parts of northwest where phosphate is in acute shortage, then we need to substitute phosphate throughout the year. You get winter lick supplements that do contain phosphates. One such example is protein lick, Molatek protein lac 40 and Venlac 50. It's a 50% protein with 1% or a 40% protein winter lick with 1% phosphate. So typically that will give your animal a 5 or a 6 grams of phosphate during the winter. Where the demand is higher, we can do mixing, or you can just add a phosphate supplement next to your protein supplements to supplement that phosphate shortage. But yes, phosphate is an animal requirement throughout the year. In the areas where animals graze maize stover, in the winter there's lesser demand for phosphate because they get it out of the maize and the stalks and such. But only natural veld, you do get better results if you substitute it throughout the year, either included in your winter supplement or separately. But yes, you won't go wrong if you supplement throughout the year. It's just the way of doing it and the practicality, and it needs to fit your production system in terms of your animal production system.
Thank you very much, Espee. Very much appreciated. There is no more hand up. That would mean that everyone is happy with the answers. Once more, just to highlight that we are doing these webinars and we are calling expertise from other stakeholders within the red meat industry, which is in line with our vision to foster stakeholder engagement in the red meat industry towards inclusive growth through the transfer of knowledge. So what Espee just did today is to give you more information about supplementary feeding for summer, so that you can be able to manage your livestock better, so that your enterprise can be profitable. So I would like to take this opportunity and thank you, Espee, for taking your time and honoring the invite to share with us the information about the supplementary feeding. So I hope everyone who was here today enjoyed the presentation, but also to highlight again that the recorded video of this webinar will be published in our on our YouTube channel, which is called Red Meat Kuluma. Kuluma meaning red meat speak. So the link for the recorded meeting will be shared with all the registered people or attendees, because I see some of them were not able to attend, but they can still get the link so that they can listen to the recorded presentation. Thank you very much, Espee. Very much appreciated from my side or from the RMITED side. It was a very great pleasure to have you in our presentation.
Thank you, Ernest. Likewise, thank you for your time and the invite. I appreciate it, and I look forward to meeting you guys again. Thank you so much.